Hey everybody, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Jay. Welcome to the Simply Holy Collective. We are a network of micro churches that come together to practice the way of Jesus. And we're just really excited about everything that we're learning. We're loving our house church on Sundays is amazing. Yeah. The conversations we're having are great. The connections are really great. We're loving going through the Gospel of John and just taking our time and really seeing what God has to say through that. Yeah. We're focusing on our healthy attachment to God and to Jesus and to the Spirit, and really learning how to attune to Him and to one another. And He's helping us, through going through John the way that we are, which is really cool.
It's lovely.
It is.
And speaking of healthy attachments, all of us are going to come together for the collective next weekend, right? So it's May 26th.
Yeah.
So we're going to be meeting at the Flint Ridge Clubhouse again, the place we met last time. But this time we are going to be having a cookout.
Memorial Day.
Yes. So we want to celebrate the holiday with you, and hopefully you and your family can stay and have some delicious grill food and just hang out and jump in the pool. Well, for those people who are not cold. So meaning all the kids basically,
right.
But just hang out. So we won't be having a meal beforehand. We'll have some coffee and tea. If anybody wants to bring donuts, you're welcome to do that. But as for our meal, it will come after the service.
Right, and that'll be great. So today, let's jump into John chapter 5.
Yes,
so, as we remember, we've been going, just seeing how John is just really developing some themes through the gospel, and he's really talking about this new life and showing how Jesus is bringing this incredible, beautiful kingdom, but it is going far beyond the boundaries of what people had expected. And the abundant life of water into wine is then carried over into the to the temple, where he clears the temple and is saying, we've got to bring the Gentiles into this. We have to open this up, stop making it difficult for them. And he's talking to Nicodemus about a new way of living and being born from above. And then he goes into Samaria and he talks to the Samaritan woman and brings the gospel to the Samaritans. And then he comes back into Galilee and he's doing all these signs and wonders, and he heals the royal official's son. So someone who was kind of working for Herod, who we would call a Herodian.
We might call him that.
And, so it just, he is bringing the good news to all people and just trying to share it with everybody. And the light that has come into the world and has made his dwelling among us now is available to everyone. And it's this continual laying out through the gospel so far of just this is going to everybody and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And can I just say one thing about that strikes me? Because so many of us have listened to Marty, Marty Solomon, and we've learned about the Herodians and the Pharisees and the
Essenes,
the
Sadducees.
We've learned that, and the Zealots. We've learned about all of these different groups of people and what they were kind of expecting, and it just interests me that Jesus seems to go out of his way to include people from all of those different groups, and it just kind of speaks to the fact that each one of these groups, they had their points.
Right.
They're not wrong about everything.
Right.
They actually started for some good reasons.
Right.
They had some good reasons they started out. Now, along the way, they probably lost their way. I think I can relate.
Right.
And got, too far off this way, too far off that way. But Jesus doesn't hold it against them. He includes all of them. And he'll do some correcting, but they're not out.
Right.
And I think that so much today. I look at all the different points of view from this denomination or this group of people and whatever, and I'm thinking, we all have some things right. And I bet Jesus would include all of us.
Right.
But we all have got some things wrong.
Right.
So we need to be ready, quick to listen.
Yeah.
And ready to change.
Right.
Because it doesn't seem like Jesus really gets upset with anyone until they are stubborn.
Right.
And they're unwilling to change, and he sees their stubborn hearts. And that's when he kind of has the edgier responses, but his intention, it seems, is to just reach out to that Herodian.
Right.
And I don't agree with everything they're doing, but I can still heal this guy.
Right.
You know.
It's
So
like Jesus draws lines only when other people draw lines. That's what
seems to
upsets
be.
him.
Yes.
Right. When they're trying to be super inclusive and like this is the end
we've
club
got
and
that. We know
we're
everything.
the ones who
Yeah.
get it. That's when he really pushes back. But otherwise, his ministry is one of welcome and inclusion for everybody.
Isn't that the best feeling in the world?
It is.
It's very relaxing.
Overwhelming grace, which is
Amen.
beautiful. So,
Okay, that was
chapter
nice.
5, then he goes back to Jerusalem. So, remember chapter 2, he was in Jerusalem, talked to Nicodemus, cleared out the temple. Then that was in chapter 3, right? And then chapter 4, he goes through Samaria back into Galilee. And now chapter 5, he goes back to Jerusalem. So that's the setting of this story. Very famous story. Let's read it. Verse 1. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now, there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." And then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." And at once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath. And so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, "It's the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat." But he replied, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" So they asked him, "Who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk?" The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who had made him well. All right. What do you think?
Oh, you want me to share first?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so reading this time, I think the thing that I connected with the most was just that here's this guy, he'd been sick for so long, he'd been invalid for so long, that when Jesus asks him, "Do you want to get well?" he kind of misses the question. Mm-hmm. He misses it. And he starts back into his story of, his circumstances and how, why and all of that. And I can so relate to this guy because, when something's been going on for so long, I think the thought of maybe healing is just like not even there anymore for me. Like, and you just kind of slip into pain management,
Right.
So I think if Jesus came and asked me if I would want this certain thing taken away or you want this to happen, I think I might still come back with it's just that, it's just that this and it's just that, and I might just miss the question altogether because, right. When we have something that's been going on for a long time, a pain of any kind, it's really easy to slip into pain management because if you still want the healing, then there's hope. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So hope, I think, is a vulnerable place to be. And so, because hope, you can still get let down. And then you don't want to go through being let down again and again and again. And so keeping hope alive can feel very dangerous and it can feel actually hurtful. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of lower the bar, lower it down. I don't need to be healed. I just, if you could just, and that's definitely where I land a lot with my prayers. If you could just, because I don't want to hope anymore for the absolute best,
right.
I think.
Right.
And then also I could relate to this because, in some of the groups that I'm a part of, we'll all be sharing something, some story, something that's going on, and someone will ask a question about it, but the person sometimes can just totally miss the question and they go right back into all of their ruminating about the story and the circumstances. Yeah. And so I'm watching it before my eyes, right. And I can kind of see it from both sides.
That's so good.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
that's probably the biggest thing about the healing that I connected with this week.
Yeah. Well, it's such an amazing story, and also such a well told story. Like the version of this in The Chosen is just so beautiful, and the build up to it, the way that, and they creatively tied this together with Simon the Zealot and all that kind of stuff, which is fun.
Creative license, we don't mind.
Right. But I've read this story many times and taught this story, preached about this story. Pick up your mat and walk. And that it's just such a common refrain. And so I was actually sitting and trying to go, okay, so Jesus, what do you want? What do you want to tell me about this? What do you want me to get out of this story this time? And I was drawn to that verse, get up, pick up your mat and walk. And it's get up, exclamation point, pick up your mat and walk. And I was reminded of, I think, how I have interpreted the tone of Jesus and his attitude and emotion in it is almost one of irritation and frustration. That do you even want to get well? Like that kind of thing. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Like 38 years?
Eyes. Yeah. You've been here for 38 years. Do you even want to get well? And then the guy starts complaining. He's like, get up, pick up your mat and walk. Like almost like he's short. And I think that's how I have, in my mind, kind of heard that tone or interpreted that tone. But what Jesus gave me a different image of that as I was praying about it this week. And that image was one of Jesus, the exclamation point was one of excitement, not of command.
Or reprimand.
Yeah. And it was one of like, oh man, you have no idea what's about to happen to you. You gotta get up. You gotta pick up your mat and walk. Like I know that you've been here, but I am offering you something that is so much better. And that ties into Jesus being the light of the world, and that harkens back to Jesus turning water into wine, and that harkens back to Jesus clearing the temple and saying, "This has got to be for everybody." This harkens back to Jesus saying, "Man, I love the world, and I came to save like this is it." It harkens back to Jesus talking to that Samaritan woman and saying, "This is it. This is it. I am He. I am the Messiah." It harkens back to him healing that son. Like, is that spirit of like, oh, you have this, what is coming is so awesome. I am bringing you a kingdom that is going to absolutely blow your mind. It is one that's centered on love and forgiveness and grace, and it's going to be awesome. You got to get up so that you can take part in it. Mm-hmm. Like you're worrying about the wrong things. Let's stop worrying about those things, because what I have for you is so much better. And so I was just given this sense of excitement that Jesus has about what he's trying to communicate here, which is, I've got something that is so much better for you than where you have been. And it's an invitation to come into that and experience that. So that's what I really got.
Well, and that changes everything. So
right.
Jesus' tone, the way that you picture Jesus saying something always changes everything. We talked about that last time, right?
Right.
And even when you were saying that, it changed how I was looking at my situations. Because if you picture, like, because he says, I don't have a friend to help me, I don't want someone to help me. Mm-hmm. I picture now, like, Jesus going, I'm here, I'm your friend, mm-hmm. I'm the one, I'm here, get up. Yeah. And it makes me think about, like, the things that I'm going through, how, Jesus, him approaching me like that is very different than him approaching me like, the first way that you said it. Right. And I was thinking about how he proves himself to be a God of abundance, even if you're not always in an abundant time of your life. Because we were thinking back to, there were some pretty dark days for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were trying to follow God, but it was hard. The voice didn't seem loud. His voice seemed really soft, and then other people's voices sounded really loud. And we would often refer to it as like we were in like the forest and we're just looking for breadcrumbs, So God would give us a little, just a little breadcrumb here, a little breadcrumb there. And that was an important time in our lives because it taught us to look for the breadcrumbs and to listen for the still small voice saying go this way or that way. So that was an important time. But now we're actually in a time of abundance. I feel like God, there's no more breadcrumbs. It's like big, huge, like wonderful blessing after blessing after blessing. And I'm not going to expect that to last forever. Like there'll never be another time where we have to just look for the breadcrumbs. But I feel that with this here, like, because if you looked back to my life a year ago, I would have been I would have been the person on the mat. I'm a person laying there, right? And Jesus coming in and going, no, get up, come on.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I followed that voice.
Yeah.
I am so glad. But I would have not even had an idea of what he was talking about. I mean, I definitely would have missed the question.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Woo. Okay. So that's the first part of John chapter 5. So take this, talk about it, chop it up.
That's all we talked about. We're not even going to talk about anything else.
No.
Because we all know that the point of this story really is that it happened on the Sabbath.
Right.
So, of course, even here, you can be astounded at a healed man is standing before the Pharisees.
Right.
And they completely miss it.
They miss it. They miss the healing because they're focused on the rules.
Because he did not do what they thought he should be doing. Ooh. I mean, and so we need so much more time for that. We're going to talk about that all next time. But I do think that this is a good place to pause, to really think like, okay, how long was he there? I don't know, over 30 years? What are my 30-year things? What have I given up hope on? Like, there's like, where are you managing pain?
Yeah.
And why are you managing pain? And how do you picture Jesus responding to your pain? In that lies so much. Your future really does in some ways hinge on how you see Jesus approaching your pain. Is he correcting you or rebuking you or sharpening you? Or is he coming in with compassion and saying, come on, I'm with you. It may not be over yet.
An eager anticipation. Like I love to picture Jesus with eager anticipation about what he has planned for me.
Exactly.
That's just, what a cool way to live and to think. So.
It is. So maybe those are some things to ponder.
Yeah.
And then next week we'll be able to get into all that Jesus has to say, which is amazing. Yeah. So don't know how quickly we'll go through the rest, but anyways.
All right. Have a wonderful week, and hope that you can come join us on Memorial Day weekend. Please RSVP so that we know who's coming and we can plan for food and all that kind of thing. And if there's anybody who wants to be the grill master,
would you let us know? Because it's really not us.
Yeah, that's not our gift.
No. We have different gifts. That's not ours.
Yeah, some of our grill people will be out of town that day, so if there's anybody else that likes to do it, let me know. All right. We love you guys, and we'll see you later.